What you know now, Emma, like you couldn't go into a boardroom now and just go, okay, this is how I'm going to run it now. This is how I'm going to show up now. You couldn't do that because
naked on a straw bale.
That's yeah, that's right. That's right. There's no change is going to come from that.
Squatted behind the bush.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the Wild Roads. I'm Shona Lee.
And I'm Paula Ivy. Join us for conversations about how we don't do stuff normal.
How we choose the wild roads of life. We want to show you all that's fun and possible, building businesses, making money,
navigating relationships and parenting, things we nerd out about,
and running at our wildest dreams.
Yeah.
Totally fun. We're very unprofessional at this, so. I like my microphone. I've had it for a few episodes now. It makes me feel a little bit more legit. I'm like, yes, I'm a podcaster, but like still don't know what I'm doing.
She looks the part.
I do.
Totally do.
Before we start our episode with the Emma Clayton, who we have here, I'm super excited to talk to Emma Clayton. She's one of my favorite humans. I feel like I say that on like every interview. I'm like, this is one of my favorite humans. I'm like, but that's why we're interviewing people on our podcast.
That's right.
Because you're one of our favorite humans.
Totally.
Emma, welcome. We will get you to share about the wonderful world that is Emma Clayton in a moment. But before we begin our podcast, we like to ease into the conversation and we ask a hashtag awkward question time question just to like break the ice, get the conversation happening, get us feeling good. So the question we thought that we would ask today, because you are all things personal and spiritual development and empowerment and all of the things, what is your go-to song to connect to your inner power?
I knew you were going to ask a song one, and I thought it's so hard because there are so many songs.
Well, you could share a few of your favorites, like, because I know that like sometimes you want to connect to that real feminine power, and sometimes you just like, you know, you want to connect to like more of a masculine power, and sometimes you want to connect to more of a, you know, a different kind of energy within. So if you have a few go-tos, that's totally fine.
Okay. Do you want me to answer now? Are we actually recording?
Yeah, we're going.
Oh, cool.
We're going for it.
This is what makes it awkward, because you're kind of like,
Let's not think about this.
All right. So my I'll tell you what, my go-to for selfography sessions when I really want to get in that spirit is The Greatest Showman, but not This Is Me. It's From Now On. I just love it.
Oh,
how does it go? I can't remember.
From now on, these eyes will not be blinded by the light.
Oh yes.
It's got all the it's just got the beat in it. And it builds, and it's just so liberating. I love that.
Beautiful.
Oh, I love
beautiful. That is very cool.
Because you do take some amazing photos of yourself, Emma. It's so funny, like when we first met each other and started working together in different ways, and it was kind of like yeah, I don't like taking photos of myself, I really do not like it, blah blah blah, and then you come out with these amazing photos and I'm like, yes,
that's thanks to you. That's thanks to you and your selfography work. Like it's game changing. Absolutely. So I love it. It doesn't happen very often. But I do get, like, the music really helps me get in the vibe. I don't think I can just do it any other way. So,
and then you build your confidence to the post you did a couple of days ago. If anyone wants to go check that out at Emma Clayton's Instagram page, my God, I loved it. It was just like a big hell yes for me when I saw that picture. I was like, you beautiful woman, you go. Like, it was amazing.
But what I loved about it was like 3 sentences.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just like
power,
this
impact.
Like wild, raw, free, like all my favorite words. And I was just like, yes. 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 I feel ya. I hear you. Like, no need to like fluff it up with a whole bunch of like words. It was just like,
it's so funny because that we hadn't had a break. So since lockdown, we've been here. like 18 months. We've not been away. We've not had a change of
Wow.
scenery. And we were invited to a wedding really last minute, and I was like, this is our break, let's get away. And so we had a couple of nights at the wedding, and then we had a couple of nights kind of glamping, but we had this field to ourselves with these like uninterrupted views, and it was just like that, you know, feet in the grass and like sun on your face, and like you get up in the middle of the night and just go and squat in the corner and like walk around naked. And I was like, let's just get naked, babe. And he was like, and I was like, all right, you photograph me. And I was just there on this straw bale, and I was like, I don't even know what came over me. I think that's it. I just went with it, the flow. And I posted that, and I was like, yeah, this is me. Like this is me having fun, just being at one with nature. And I think my next post was, what the fuck was I thinking? But this is it, right? We have these moments.
I love it.
Happened because like, but that's the thing,
didn't
right?
Quite think it through in terms of like who might see it, right?
Yeah, but I mean that's the unapologeticness of that. Like that's what leaders do. The reason why I absolutely love you and the work that you do and how you are a leader is that you are living by going first. Like Shona and I talk about this all the time. As a leader, it's your job to go first. It's not your job to dictate to other people. You should go out there and you should dance naked in a field because that will feel empowering for you. And you know what feels better, like you did it and you just showed us, and we went, and I had this moment, I was like, I want to dance naked in a field. That looks amazing. Like I actually we did that when we traveled Australia. I do know when you are in nature, something like primal runs through your veins. And there was this moment, it was at Steep Point, which is the most westerly point of Australia. So it was kind of like 2/3 of the way around of our trip for us. So we've been traveling for quite a while. And the whole time we'd been traveling, I was like, I want to do some like topless shots at the most ridiculously beautiful beach. And there was plenty of times where I was like, okay, there's nobody here. This place is amazing. And I still was kind of like, I don't want to do it. And then when we're at Steep Point, my husband, Brendan, he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm like, do what? And he's like, the naked shot. I'm like, you want to do the naked shot? And he's like, hell yeah. And so we got out of the car and he was just like, all right, it's here. It's here.
And
I was taking his photo and he's doing looking at the sea fully nude. And like, he was braver than I was, because I was like, we stopped on the side of this track and there was cars like driving back and forth every so often. And like, as he was putting his clothes back on, get back in the car, there was like cars driving past. And I was like, But I did it too. But there was like you couldn't see anybody at the beach, and I was topless for maybe like a minute and a half. And then I put it back on and my kids were like, Mummy, you got your boobies out. And I was like, yeah. And they were cheering me on. I'm like, yeah, that's what it should be like. You get your boobies out, you're in nature, you're just feeling and it feels so good in your body. Just, this is just me.
Completely.
So, yeah.
The funniest thing with that shot was I said to Adam, I said, well, the sun's kind of going down, so we can just get like a silhouette. And when I showed him the photos, he went, there's nothing silhouetted about those. I was like, I'll use a Paula Ivy preset.
Because the new iPhones are getting really good at low light photography, so they still bring up all of the details, which sometimes we're like, we don't want that.
It was
amazing.
So good. Yeah, I was just, it was so empowering, which brings us to beautiful segue to talk about you, the Emma Clayton Show. Tell us about it. That just sounds like, wow, put it up in lights, but tell us about the Emma Clayton Show.
So the Emma Clayton Show is my podcast that started in March, and it was actually Jana Kingsford that I was working with at the time who encouraged me to go with that name, because I couldn't find a name that kind of encapsulated the breadth of the topics that I wanted to bring to my podcast. Because I think with me, I'm just such a curious, I just want to learn, and I just want to share the stuff that I learn, because every time my eyes are opened, I'm like, guys, look what I just learned. And like, I just want other people to like open their eyes too. So I went with the Emma Clayton Show because a big part of it was me actually realizing that my name means something and stands for something, as much as it was to come up with a podcast name, because I couldn't find anything specific. And I know you had the same kind of challenge when you were thinking about a name for your podcast.
Took us months.
Months.
Exactly.
And then
I didn't have a podcast for a year.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Yeah. Well, Shona and I was taking us months, and we were agonizing over that name. And then Shona had a night out with her brother, just hanging out, and he was like, the Wild Roads, and we're like, boom.
Whoa.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Love
okay.
it.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
Oh my gosh. And how nice that he knows you that well. Like,
yeah.
That's correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, it would have been too long for the Paul Ivy and the Shona Lee show, because it would have been brilliant, but you know, it's a lot. But yours is gorgeous, and your podcast, like, you love it. It's going well. What's happening?
I love podcasting. What I've realized, I think a big part of my journey has been about using my voice to kind of just share stuff, and not just to speak my truth, but you know, to actually have a voice in the world. And I hadn't realized how much, because I had so much resistance around it, I hadn't realized how much I would love it. Just being able to have conversations like this just lights me up, just being in conversation with like-minded people that have just got something to say about something that will help open someone else's eyes to something new, or change their perspective, or I'm just really passionate about growing, like personally developing and spiritually growing and all this kind of thing, without it being super woo. And because I come from a very masculine background, I was corporate for 20 years. I'm not your typical entrepreneur by, you know, any stretch of the imagination. So for me, I'm like, I've got this kind of childlike awe. I'm always inspired by learning new things, and I just want to share. I'm like, well, if I didn't know about it, there's other people out there that don't know about it too. So that's finding that platform with the podcast has just been awesome, and it's in its second season already. So I was involved in our local TEDx event, if you like. So I was part of pulling together the event where we had 8 speakers, so actually sourcing our speakers and finding them. So I'm actually interviewing them at the moment, so it just brings a totally different dynamic.
Amazing.
It's really cool. And there's interviewed a guy who is a systemic practitioner, and so he looks at inherited trauma. I know you had Cassia Burke on the show, but he's looking at actually systems being, you know, a town or a community or a family, and actually looking at how we inherit trauma. And that sort of just fascinates me, because it's just like, well, it just opens up again, it kind of explains a lot, right? We were talking about my town is Dover in the UK, in Kent, so it's been on the front line of many wars for millennia. And there's like this massive, like, Dover's actually not got a great kind of vibe about it. It really struggled. And when you look at the history, there's no surprise there really, because, you know, in World War II, all the dead bodies were brought back through the port of Dover, and we have this like ongoing grief. And then there's like people that lived in these beautiful places on the seafront during the war were evacuated into the like hills and promised their places back and never got it back. So there's this resentment and it's just like, wow, I was born and bred in Dover, so if there is any of that in me, I can kind of go, oh yeah, I see that.
That's
now.
Why.
Yeah, so it just opens up.
It's fascinating.
Like, I just love bringing all these topics to it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. With your other work, with you're obviously helping with the TEDx talks, and you're doing that sort of work. I was reading your bio, which was the revolution. That's the coolest word ever. What? Tell me about it. Tell us about it.
Oh my gosh. So I think when I first started out in business, that word just came to me, and it was more about I think I was more in the place of rebelling against like diet culture and, you know, loving your body and all that kind of thing. So we're talking like 4 years ago, and revolution, just I started the Diet Revolution, which was my first Facebook group, and then kind of that died a death as I evolved. Like I've been through so many kind of different focus points on my business. So I went from diet peace to food freedom to body confidence to just general confidence to going back into like the work confidence. So yeah, it's taken a few iterations, if you like. That word kind of stuck, and it came back to me one New Year, because I was like, New Year revolution, because we don't need to set New Year's resolutions, right? Let's rebel against that whole setting of goals at that point. So it's kind of always stuck. And then when I was thinking of a name for my podcast, I actually sang Tracy Chapman's Talking About a Revolution and Sound. Like, and I was like, that's my podcast name. I'm talking about a revolution. Yeah, because I love it. It's a revolution. It's like a movement that is it's rebellious in nature, like I am. Yeah. And it's saying no to things like buying into diet culture and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and coming back to yourself time and time again. And then I thought I'd better just do a little research and make sure it's not been trademarked anywhere. And it had, since I came up with it though, that first time. Man. I was like, so I still feel like I'm the creator of a revolution. So it's kind of a bit of a strap line, even though I can't call my podcast, or I can't risk calling my podcast it, which is another reason it became the Emma Clayton Show.
Yeah,
we went through that, didn't we? We're just like, oh, what about this name? And then all of a sudden it was just like, nah, somebody else got that, somebody else got that. Oh my gosh. It is. But I love your work. Your work is reclaiming you. It's amazing. So what are your containers? How do you work with and help people, help women? Is it women that you mostly work with?
Yeah, largely women, but that's interesting. I'll come back to that. So I have, so Reclaiming You is my signature one-to-one, which I absolutely adore. So it's generally working with women in a one-to-one container for like 6 months. And that is all about just stripping back everything that you're not, like really understanding what's made you to be the person that you are. That's what fascinates me, is just like the story. And I guess healing, healing for me is kind of like looking at what's holding you back from what you really want, and then let's just like get to the root and dig them out so that you can kind of move forward. So there is an element of healing, but really understanding what's shaped who you are today, and then just stripping that back and going, actually, this is me, and bringing that into every part of your world, where you don't have to put on a different hat or a mask to go into the office. You don't have to play a different role if you're in your one relationship versus another friend group. You just bring yourself, and you're confident and comfortable in that, and everything just around you improves as a result of you actually showing up as your most authentic self in the world. So it's such a beautiful journey, and that's the work that just lights me up. Yeah, it's so cool. I have another program called Unboxing Her, which just focuses on that, like deconditioning and like just going, oh, okay, I see I've put myself in all these boxes, or I've been put in these boxes through my life, and I'm just breaking free of those now. It's done, moving on. And then I have my membership, which is the Initiation Members Club, which is just every month I run a short course. So I've done things like understanding how your brain works. That was under the hood. Because when we understand how our brain works, we can understand how we think and feel, and how it's all connected, and how we can literally have the power, take back the power to actually change our approach, what we do next, and all that kind of stuff. That's where I want to really empower people with that kind of knowledge and understanding, and then create the environment where they can practice and kind of integrate the knowledge that they're learning. So yeah, we've done things like Belief Builder using Jana's Belief Ethics facilitation, which I certified in last year, which I absolutely love the simplicity of that tool to help people just really kind of see where their conditioning might be showing up in their everyday thoughts, and change it, turn it around. And we don't need to make it complex or like lengthy, this process. We just get to like, oh, okay, a new awareness comes up and we can go, I'll do something with that now. And I think that's just what I love is making it really simple, really accessible, really bite-sized, and baby steps almost to like actually seeing the progress. And I just love that people can come into my membership. I've got members in there for the 6 months since it's been, well, it's 7 months now since it started, and just to see them every month just showing up with new awareness and being able to own it and take power back. This is why I do what I do. So.
Yes. Bloody legend, mate.
Yeah.
Bloody legend.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, that's such a wild road to go from where you were before to the work that you're doing now, and shifting the way that you're helping people, because that, like they say, I mean, after you've been doing the personal development and the spiritual work for so long, and you hear people say it's such a wild thing to just be yourself. And I'm like, at that point where I'm like, I've been myself for a while, and I'm like, I forget, like, it's such a wild concept sometimes to like be, okay, I can be me at my job and also with my friends and also with my partner and also with my kids. It's just that we're so conditioned and so trained to act and, you know, look and be a certain way in these different settings, because then you look professional, then you look like a responsible parent, then you look like, you know, blah, 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 whatever it is that we think that we're supposed to be looking like, and we bring our best foot forward in that sense. Whereas it's just like, you can just be yourself all the time. And I see this, especially with my kids, like when I relax into just being myself instead of trying to turn on like my mum mode and be like, I'm a mum, I should be saying this and I should be like, and they just have so much more fun with me, and they listen when I say stuff.
Easier.
And
easier.
they talk to me like we're like equals in a conversation, rather than like, oh, mum's talking to me, I'm not gonna, like, you know. It's so incredible. And I think one of the wildest things as an entrepreneur is to build a business just based on you being you is like the wildest thing of all. Like, it just and I love that that's what you're helping people do, because you've got such an incredible background in the corporate world, so you understand where people are coming from. You understand a lot of like the conditioning in that respect as well, but then also like what you said with the belief ethics, and then also with the theta healing, and you have all these other like areas that you've studied and that you've gone into to help do this work from so many different angles. It's so incredible.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it wasn't until I left the corporate world after 20 years that I could see the conditioning and what I needed to decondition, right, before I could even begin to show up as myself in my business. Because I didn't even know what that meant. I was looking for the strategies and all that kind of stuff when I first left, because I was like, show me how to be an entrepreneur, show me how to be a business owner and have a successful online business. I didn't have a clue, and it's probably taken me 3 out of the 4 years to actually unlearn all that stuff in terms of how I approach my life now. And it's now that I feel ready to go back into that corporate environment and help from the inside out. So I'm all about the inner game, and I've kind of like been working on that with the individuals, but now I want to do the inner game within the organization, so that I can help from the inside out of there, which I think is what I was always meant to do, but I just needed that break to see it for what it is now. But I think me getting like almost like I'm ready to go back there now and actually start to have these conversations. And it's amazing when everything starts to fall into place. And like, so I've got such a network as well there. So just having a few conversations with some old contacts and connections at the company I used to work for, which had 13,000 employees, right? Just wanting to go back in there and make an impact from the inside out, knowing what I've learned since I've left, that excites me as well. So that's kind of exciting. That's a new kind of avenue that I'm taking. And that's where with the men, like I get to work with men as well, because I have had a few conversations with men, and I've had a couple of male clients, and I was even surprised at the similar kind of challenges that were coming up, and how well they responded to the same kind of tools and methods and stuff like that. So
That's
I
cool.
think I have that confidence now to go in and say, yeah, it's not, because it can't just be a female thing. Go
That's
back into
right.
the corporate world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be either, because
No.
I'm specific enough in my approach to say this is what I can help with. And I know, because I've left and so many people have said, oh, I struggle with that too, you know, whether it's imposter syndrome or not being able to speak up in meetings and not feeling like they're good enough in that setting. So yeah, I'm like, oh my God, there's this whole other world that's opened up that I feel like I can have a bigger impact in. So
I love that. I love it,
Yeah.
because it's interesting that you said before that, you know, you needed to break from that. And I was talking with a client today, it's so much harder to see when you're in it, to be able to, you know, there's some things that are, you know, tapping on your shoulder to be able to help, and you know you've learned along the way. But until you're absolutely on the other side of it and you have healed those things or unconditioned those things, it's easier to be able to step in and hold space for those people to be able to help them.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That was crucial, I think, for my own, like it was so weird because I got faced with redundancy after 20 years, and I thought that could have been the worst case scenario, like to be left without a job. And actually when it came, it was a time where I was in my personal development journey that I was like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much already that I want to help other people. And it was mainly around like body confidence and the dieting thing. And so I always knew, or my intention was, to use my network and go back into corporate and help with that. And I've just had to go on this journey where it's like, is it really the body and food stuff, or is it like bigger than that? And like, just roll with it and follow my nose and my curiosity, which has always kind of served me quite well, to get back to this point where I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense now.
It's a real natural evolution, isn't it, to get to where you are? It's finding out what you don't want to be just as much as what you do, which is really, really cool. I want to ask you, because I met you and have got to know you through Paula, and I assume you guys have been working together for a little while now, and you have a bit of a rapport. Like, how did you come across Paula?
So I told this, I think I told this story on the episode that you came on to my podcast, but I came across Paula in the Queens of the Internet, which was Melanie Anlea's kind of online summit. And and it was, Paula wasn't speaking or anything. It's just I wasn't
speaking.
Every now and again.
So when you said that, I was like, really?
Every now and again, this speaker would go, oh, it's Paula the Ivy. And I'm like, who is this Paula the Ivy chick? So kind of checked her out, quickly followed her and was like, oh my gosh. And at the same time came across Jana. And I think I jumped into Jana's Dreamspo, and then I jumped into the Selfography mission, creative 30-day mission. And it just started there, really. And I think since then I've joined Selfography Club and Creatrix, which is now Wild Ones.
Wild Ones, yeah.
And yeah, just loving on all the work that you ladies do.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah. That was over a year ago now.
It was. It feels like it's so strange, because I'm like, it was only a year ago, but then at the same time, I'm like, I feel like you're one of those people that I just feel like I've always known you. Like, we've always
just hit it off.
I really feel like the work that you do, Emma, and the power behind it, and why I'm so excited to see where you go with this, especially with your ties back to the corporate world from this whole new perspective, is that you're like, the genius that you have is helping people connect back to who they are at the heart and soul of who they are, so that I'm really excited to see what happens next. Do you have any like predictions or visions that is like the next phase of what you're wanting to do? Because I feel like that just in the ways that you work, helping people really connect to who they are and to see the conditioning that they've got and where it's come from, and why they do things a certain way. And just that, like, it feels like this like liberation that happens with people in your world to then go, oh, like I can be this, like I can be me, and I can drop all of this stuff. Like, I feel like watching your journey, it's like, you know, you talk about the fitness and the weight loss and things like that, but that was, you know, from an outsider's perspective and watching you, I'm like, yeah, that was some conditioning that you had. That was something that was a part of like your journey to really unravel and get to the heart and soul of who you are. And there's always so many different things entangled within that. And I've seen the, like, I'm witnessing the impact that you're having already. And it, like, just in the last year of knowing you, and it's incredible. And I would love to know, like, what are your visions? What are your wild dreams? What is the next thing that's coming in your world that you're
I love this question.
So timing wise, it's perfect because something new's dropping in, and it's still something I haven't really thought out fully, but I do think it's part of my purpose and the reason I had a 20-year career in the corporate world. And that is, I can, like, working one-to-one with these women, and they tend to be women from the corporate world, right, that come to me because they resonate with my journey and my story so far. Amazing results that I can have with these women in terms of like how they feel in showing up and perhaps shining a little bit more in the boardroom. But you imagine they're then met with this kind of patriarchal system that was made by men for men, you know, hundreds of years ago, and that still has some impact on how fully they can show up. So I think part of my longer game, if you like, is this idea of going from the inside out. Is actually working with individuals still, but also I would love to work with the corporate, the business, the people in the business, like running the show as well, so that they could, because I think there's a lot of lip service that's played around, you know, encouraging diversity and inclusion, for example, diversity of thought, and encouraging women to take more leadership roles and more seats around the table. But there's playing lip service, and there's making the moves, and then there's actually creating the very environment that's going to allow them to thrive.
Yeah.
So for me, my big dream, if you like, that's starting to come a bit clearer, is to actually have an impact in terms of the culture of these organizations and bring back more of the, like, more value to be placed on authenticity and intuition and the more feminine kind of qualities that we bring. Because when I think about some of the meetings that I was sat in, whereas my lips, I couldn't open my mouth and say the thing, because I was like, but this is not based on having sat a spreadsheet and like analyzed this data for months on end. This is just this is just something I feel, or like I'm sensing something in the room. I could call out the elephant in the room, but I didn't feel like that had any legs with these people that are, you know, very well intentioned, but very technically minded, very logical, very in their masculine kind of approach. And if only I knew what I know now and I could go back, I feel like I would actually, because I trust myself and that knowing, I would have more like oomph in sharing that and speaking that. But I think until the environment changes, until the culture changes, like, we're still going to be up against that. So that's kind of like becoming clearer to me, but it's still very early days.
I got goosebumps because there's so many layers to that, because there's the layers of, when you are, I mean, I have worked for other people in the past. I've never had highly corporate roles, but I know working for smaller business, which were kind of a little bit in that corporate sense, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm like, I cannot be in this environment. But the thing is, there's so many layers to this, because it is like being your own boss and building your own business, you can see how well following your intuition actually moves your company, your business, your revenue forward all of the time. There's always this movement and growth because you're following your intuition. You're not going off spreadsheets and numbers and things that make logical sense.
There's no evidence.
If you're wanting something like to be innovative and, you know, new and exciting and fast paced and growing rapidly, that's a very old school way of thinking, like, oh, logically and, you know, pass blah, blah and spreadsheet. And like, it's just like, but that's not how magic is made. Like if you want something to be beautiful and magical and just a whole like alive energy, it needs that space to be able to be alive. So that's, and then the layers, the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking was like the layers of that conditioning from like so many years beyond, like before as well. Like there's probably so many industries and businesses that are just running because of the way that it was run before, and people aren't even like questioning it because it's so ingrained. Because it's also been passed down our lineage too. It's like when you go to work, this is what happens and this is what happens. And when you've got, you know, you talk to so many people, they're like, oh, this kind of profession is in my family. I was a doctor, my blah, blah, was a doctor, like they were a doctor, and you can see it through their lineage. Like that happens so often with families. There's a lot of photographers in my family. I'm always surprised. But like it, and teachers actually as well. So it kind of, it's so interesting that there is so many layers to this as to why things are the way that they are right now, and just actually being aware of all of that is so powerful. And like what you said, until you actually step outside of it and like kind of assess your own spiritual and physical and mental, you know, well-being and where you're at and how you feel, and you go, oh, this is what I was feeling when I was in that environment, this is what I was experiencing, and not having it be molded or, you know, kind of I don't know what the word, like directed or like, I don't know, kind of in that world still, because you're kind of like, well, this is my job, and you know, being outside of that, not being attached to that anymore, you can kind of see it through fresh eyes. And it's just so amazing to be able to see so many of these things that's going on. They do talk about, you know, diversity and, you know, all of that sort of stuff. My husband's in a very corporate role, and I hear him talk about this sort of stuff all the time, and he's like, oh yeah, and he's like, so, like some of it doesn't really, you know, doesn't really gel with him, but like he's like, yeah, you got to have certain numbers of certain types of people for certain things. And I'm like, really? Like, just, it's like, I get it. And it's amazing that we're wanting to create change, but it still feels very much like, because numbers on paper, and like we need to fill in the things and tick boxes.
And imagine how the individuals feel when they fill that role and then realize that they were just filling like a quota kind of thing. And
they pat themselves on the back.
And the culture isn't there to support. So it's, I mean, it's huge. It's bigger than me, but I feel like that is why I had that, because I was kind of like, I spent like half of my life in this environment, and I've kind of like almost discarded it, but I kind of had to see it with fresh eyes. And I think rather than demonizing the corporate world, it's like, how can I just make a positive impact? Because actually there's some really great stuff that's being done there as well.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely. And it is I was about to say a big ship to steer, because it's like, you know, it's heading in a direction, and it's like big and beefy, and like to actually turn it around to sort of start heading in a new direction takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of, you know, people that do a lot of things. So yeah,
definitely. Like it's especially what you said about the layers, Paula, like, because what you know now, Emma, like you couldn't go into a boardroom now and just go, okay, this is how I'm going to run it now, this is how I'm going to show up now. You couldn't do that because
naked on a straw bale.
That's right. There's no change is going to come from that.
Squatted behind the bush.
Yeah, exactly. There's no change is going to come from you like teaching people how to walk into the boardroom now, right? And showing up as this. There's work to be done in the other way to accept this kind of change in behavior and condition. And so I think this is beautiful because you can help both sides of this, right? You get to go in there and help it come together in this beautiful merging and embracing this new way of doing corporate. And it doesn't mean that the strategy's out the window. It doesn't mean you throw out all the things and we're just, dancing around the fire naked. Like that, it's not that, but it's really developing a different way of using your intuition and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. I had a conversation with someone that is now a managing director. So there's not that many women managing directors in the company that I used to be in. And it was so refreshing to hear her say she thinks it's starting to change. She's got a very accepting boss who appreciates her more softer, caring, these are the words that she used, approach. And she actually said to me, I stick to a 40-hour week. And she wears that with a badge of honor, which is huge because most people wear the 80-hour week, 80-hour week with a badge of honor. So there is a shift, but she's still subjected to being talked over in meetings and other people not being able to make eye contact with her, or like men not being able to make eye contact with her and things like that. So that it's deeply rooted in the culture of these businesses. So it's not necessarily something I can go in and change, but I can see it for what it is and help, I think, make subtle shifts. And it was actually working with Carly Marie for a brief period that she helped me realize that the kind of conversation has been about work-life balance, especially in the corporate world. And so this woman that I spoke to has kind of demonstrated that she can have that. But actually, when you look at what needs to change next, it's like the workplace balance. So it's almost bringing those feminine qualities back into the workplace to bring a bit more of a balance in terms of decision making and strategy and way forward and that kind of thing. So it's just exciting. It feels huge and it's new, but it feels quite exciting that it's almost like opening up, and I'm like, I think this is it. Or that's the direction. So
that's so cool. I'm excited for you. I feel like this is big. This is big, and I like it.
It's a bit scary, but it's I'm ready.
Yeah, you're
ready
the woman for it. Yeah,
it's so wild. I love it.
It is wild. I love it too. So what's plans like after you do this? Like, what are your bigger dreams?
I mean, it's funny because Adam and I are very similar in our kind of aspirations of our home, like we're home birds. So I've always thought when I left the corporate world, I was like, I would love to work in Australia for 3 months of the year, aka your summer and our winter. So just get away, and that would be an ideal balance. We've now got a dog, and I can't imagine leaving him for 3 months. So Adam wants more dogs. So we have this beautiful home, and it's we have big plans for it. Probably not our forever home, but it is for now. So we love to travel. We love to explore. I want to do more of that because I haven't done much of that in the last couple of years, but no one has. But I think for us, it is just like going back to nature like we did at the weekend. It's like, this is what it's all about. So I think we always, when we went to New Zealand, we were like, I could see like having our own like vineyard and a little guest house and stuff. We've got an Airbnb now already, which I actually don't mind. I quite enjoy. Rolling hills one side, sea views the other. Lots of dogs running around, mainly Cocker Spaniels, and maybe a vineyard, some hops. He was talking about making hops as well and making beer and stuff like that, but just really the simple life. I'm a manifestor in human design, and our signature theme is peace. So give me peace in nature and I'm happy.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
I want to come hang out
me too.
In your vineyard, please.
There's a space in the
I will be a guest
house.
Oh, cool.
I will be there. Where can we find you on the interwebs, Emma Clayton?
So I'm emmaclayton.xo on Facebook and Instagram. And I think I'm Emma Clayton Coach on LinkedIn. Slightly different angle that I take on LinkedIn. No naked on hay bales there. Although I was tempted.
It's tempted.
Just to mix it up a
The
bit.
shift that LinkedIn corporate world needs. Baby steps.
Yes.
And then I've got the Emma Clayton Show, which is available on all your favorite listening platforms. So yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Love
Definitely
it.
jump on. Emma's podcast is amazing, especially the episode that I was on. But all the other episodes are amazing too.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us. It's awesome. Really awesome. We love your work. Yeah.
Yeah, love you guys too.
All the love.
Wild Rose! Wild Rose!
Wow.